insane Alex Jones conspiracy theories that have turned out to be true? Is this... Okay. All right.
Alex Jones has been trying to warn all of us for decades. He's accused powerful people of hiding their evil acts in plain sight.
Yeah. Now I have to get the shit Bohemian Grove information out.
And then he was also right about Bohemian Grove.
He warned us about the elite pedo rings.
He was the guy who told me about...
He even brought up Jeffrey Epstein.
Epstein's island.
Jerry Epstein.
More than a decade ago.
Clinton took multiple trips to Epstein's private island where he kept young women as slaves.
They fly famous, rich scientists and politicians, and they compromise them with underage girls.
Police infiltrating protests to turn them violent.
Alex Jones had a great video called 9/11: The Road to Tyranny. It was the first time I really understood that agent provocateurs are a government strategy.
He even warned us about Bill Gates.
And I've seen Bill Gates say, we've got to get this down to 0. And he puts his clicker and puts an image of a human up there.
Most people dismissed him. A lot of what he said was absurd.
Gay people, I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
But the more prominent he became, the more these warnings took their psychological toll, sending him spiraling deep into alcoholism, which pushed him to even more erratic behavior.
I think that unleashed him. I think the alcohol might have unlocked his potential.
That would one day destroy him completely, almost like it was done by design, by the very people he warned us of. Because over time, piece by piece, parts of what he'd been saying started to surface.
I did take those plane trips with him.
But by that point, it had already cost him his entire life and reputation.
I don't know it is not going to work that you are going to...
made obviously by our own creation.
You see, Alex Jones wasn't always such a mess. He wasn't this alcoholic Adderall addict, saying whatever he can to get clicks. In fact, in 1995, Jones was just a local Texas news reporter, and he was...
Yes, Alex Jones. Like, I think he grew up, like, he was in Austin. My mom would watch Alex Jones on public access television.
Pretty handsome and eccentric, although still grounded and tuned into reality. He liked a bit, but not too much, and he was proud of being in good shape.
I do drink some alcohol, though, and I probably should quit doing that because it makes me fat when I drink 2 or 3 beers before I go to bed.
His driving force back then were his worries about expanding government power.
Okay, I don't care about Republican Democrat. I care about getting my taxes cut. I care about getting government cut.
His biggest claims to fame back then was when George Bush had him dragged out of a press conference for challenging him while being governor of Texas.
About this.
Sir, shouldn't we abolish the Federal Reserve and the CFR?
And he was convinced that governments everywhere by nature are controlled by a shadowy group of elites. But back then, it was the Council of Foreign Relations he mistrusted most.
And now it's
real reality that none of you will talk about, most of you are members.
Through history, governments have always been dangerous. You know, a certain elite controls everybody. Until we realize that Republicans and Democrats are the same people at the top, 2 sides of the same coin, puppet A and puppet B, we are not going to effectively change this until we are honest about who we're up against.
Back then, Jones had no idea who he would one day become. The US presidential candidates would invoke his name on the campaign trail, and he had no idea how this success would eat away his sanity and his entire life, driving him so deep into alcohol abuse that he just became unrecognizable. And that the
I have to tell you guys a secret. I was walking to my podcast, and this is the one that we filmed with Ice, and I met a guy that was just totally randomly. He was a guy that worked at InfoWars, and he works with Alex Jones. We exchanged contact information. This happened a week ago. We had a very interesting conversation. It's crazy. What are the odds of that?
warnings he gave us would eventually turn to psychosis. But to understand Alex Jones, you have to understand that back in the day, he was an early genius of the internet, someone who adopted it before anyone else, realizing it could give InfoWars unlimited reach. The reality is,
my mom was on the internet constantly. She'd be watching him, like all these other guys, like.
It wasn't a prescient move anticipating the web's domination. It was solely because he was booted out of traditional news for claims about Waco and the Oklahoma City bombings.
9/11 was the big one.
Myself and Steve Lane and many others to Waco, to the scene of the April 19th
1993 butcher massacre of Clinton, the impotent, pus-filled agent trying to feel empowered, ordered his henchmen to go out and murder a church community and then drum up all sorts of propaganda as a test to see if they could kill people in the future.
His take on a story was always through a lens traditional media did not want to look at.
That's true.
Being cut loose from radio and local news set him free to follow the stories that really interested him.
Did.
And one of those was Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove was a rumored paganistic society made up of elites from around the world. With some
The crazy thing about this is that everybody thought this wasn't real, and Alex Jones, like, he just went there and he showed it. And he's like, look. And now everybody just acknowledges, yeah, it happened.
of the most powerful U.S. government figures among its ranks.
And as I attacked the Bushes for being some of the highest level members of the Bohemian Grove, it's now out that Henry Kissinger has been the high priest in past years, where they do these mock human sacrifices, and some say for real.
But back then, Jones didn't have an audience of millions or a massive fortune at his disposal. He was just a determined guerrilla-style investigative journalist. And the seeds of his manic brand were
I'm pretty sure this is the underpass, if I'm correct on this. This is the underpass downtown Austin leading into like it's like 5th Street or something like that, or like the hospital, the Seton Hospital. Like there are people living here now.
The seeds of his manic brand were already starting to sprout.
I don't want to be part of their sick control freak system. I don't like these degenerate, inbred, New World Order crowd people. They're not going to run my life. They're not going to control me, and I'm going to try to expose them.
So Jones actually decided to go out and locate Bohemian Grove and infiltrate one of their ceremonies to film the rituals. And he wasn't alone.
This is the story of one man's attempts to infiltrate and secretly film inside Bohemian Grove.
Now it seems like an unlikely partnership, but Jones ended up joining forces with the British investigative journalist John Ronson to sneak into Bohemian Grove for a Channel 4 documentary, The Secret Rulers of the World.
2001.
Well, here we are, folks, turning on to the Bohemian Highway and Bohemian Grove. We're going to find out what in the New World Order is going on here.
We were there in person.
25 years ago. Think about that.
They were burning.
For Jones, this was the equivalent of a flat earther reaching the icy ring surrounding Earth.
You saw the firmament.
To be fair, it was completely insane what they discovered.
Yes.
The place was full of roped-up people practically wetting themselves with excitement in anticipation of their weird ritual of chanting and burning in effigy of an ancient owl god, all surrounded by some of the most influential and powerful people in the world.
I feel like that's a really big deal. I don't know. I think that's a really big fucking deal. That's crazy. What's going on over there?
For Jones, it was absolutely clear vindication that his New World Order really did exist. Now he was convinced that more circles of elite figures from around the world were operating in secret, doing terrible things with impunity protected by the highest powers in the world.
You cover up a crime, you're involved in it. I mean, of course the globalists hire a bunch of pedos to run things.
Even after that, almost no one was paying attention. It took Jones many years to become the whiskey-guzzling rabble-rouser we all know him as. Because even though we look back on it more fondly now, the 90s was a pretty dull time for conspiracy theorists. Western economies were strong, politics was centrist, tech was still pretty harmless and fun. Nintendo and Sony were the giants everyone knew about, not Palantir and TikTok. People weren't hearing things about Jeffrey Epstein compromising the...
People were so positive and everything was so good in the 90s, and then 9/11 happened and everything turned into being bad. That's basically what it was. Everything was okay, everything was fine, and then as soon as 9/11 happened, the world changed for the worst.
Elites in our governments, there seemingly wasn't much to be suspicious of. But then September 11th happened. This sent conspiracies mainstream, and it gave Jones the hard launch he'd been looking for.
On 9/11, on 9...
The day after 9/11, he was calling it a conspiracy or some sort of false flag.
11 of September 2001, yesterday.
I didn't pre-watch.
As we do the show live,
I pre-experienced.
I
was there.
I have predicted for the last 5 years occurred. They are going to now use terrorism as a pretext to destroy our civil liberties.
The moment shattered everything. The illusion of global peace most Westerners lived in. The basic level of trust most people had in governments and militaries. The security people felt living in the richest, most powerful nations on Earth. Suddenly now, people were questioning everything. For Jones, this was confirmation that everything he'd been warning people about for years was true. But he took it to another level, and he didn't waste any time doing it.
Either the government actually carried out this bombing themselves, the New World Order occupational government, to create the crisis, to offer the solution, or, ladies and gentlemen, they allowed terrorists from somewhere in the world who were state-sponsored,
he got kicked off of everything for this,
to engage in this sinister activity.
Despite a ramshackle online setup with a limited following, Jones started to make a splash with his relentless frenzied claims that it was an inside job. He warned us this was the latest in a string of false flag operations by the US government to justify the expansion of government and the rollout of mass surveillance.
Governments have staged terror attacks.
Isn't it crazy that, man,
throughout history, or allowed terrorists to attack as a pretext to invade and enslave the population.
Unlike today, the inside job element of this warning didn't go down with the country reeling from this incident.
I actually think this was the end of Piers Morgan's CNN show. I think Alex Jones killed it. Like, he just totally fucking just yeah, he just mogged him, bro. Like, it was not even close.
But it did bring in the USA's dark history of false flag operations into the open again, which was helped by Jones' repeated rants about Operation Northwoods, a rejected 1960s US plan to covertly facilitate Cuban attacks on civilian targets, or to justify a war against the communist Castro regime. As a result, InfoWars started gaining some serious ground.
For those of you that can't tell, this is a small room that I've picked to use rather than the larger studios. It's much simpler and I can run everything myself.
Even still in his tiny little studio. But soon as people realized the horrors of the Patriot Act, among the horrors of the Iraq War, his rising popularity and fame allowed for a much more slick operation.
I'm Alex Jones at Real Alex Jones. Stay with us. This is a war.
The more extreme his claims became,
you support raping children with battery acid,
the bigger his audience got, and the more rapid his
I
run.
think also, like, there's another component to this too, where like he kept showing people things that were in plain sight, and he kept getting deplatformed and demonized for it. And then people, like, because there were things like, I mean, imagine exposing a secret society that presidents and other heads of states are in, and people are just like, I mean, that's crazy.
Became, the more his viewers lapped it up.
Children walking around with their bald
By the way, the response that people have to that and a couple other things that Alex Jones said that turned out to be true, that is the foundation that I base the expectation like nobody gave a shit about the Epstein files. It's because this isn't the first time this has happened. It's happened multiple times before this.
Dying of cancer all around me.
That's it.
Why? This is a normal response to them.
So by the early 2010s, he now had a large but still pretty niche audience tuning in daily for his hours-long high blood pressure live rants on everything, from fluoride in the water to elite banking cartels preparing for the end of the world. But the 2010s also saw two huge events that would rattle the US further. And while this made Jones an enormous figure, it shattered his sanity even further, convincing him that he was now on a God-given mission to deliver the world from the evil of the New World Order.
How about that?
Which, being one of the most stressful things to take on, catalyzed his drinking.
Despite the incredible mission I've got and the whole world counting on me more and more to be the leader of a movement against tyranny. It's just to have hundreds of people coming up with light in their eyes just telling me how great I am. Let me tell you something. As good as I am, ladies and gentlemen, I like to chew tobacco. I like to drink whiskey. And I'll be honest with you, I have constant struggles and to, get a bottle of Jack Daniels. I don't even have the self-control.
The moment came where one of Jones's most outlandish claims was in part vindicated.
It was a staged event to launch the Iraq War and to set up a domestic police state here in the United States.
In 2013, CIA whistleblower Edward Snowden fled to Russia. Working with a group of international journalists, Snowden released a load of classified CIA files that sent shockwaves around the world.
I remember this.
In the wake of September 11, the USA, under Section 215 of the Patriot Act, had been secretly collecting the phone records and data of hundreds of millions of people in a global surveillance system.
But what happened in the wake of 9/11 was a whole bunch of government officials got together behind closed doors, and this was actually...
So keep this in mind whenever they tell you they can't figure out these Reddit retards that are going around trying to threaten the president. Keep this in mind whenever they say, like, oh, well, we don't know where they are. Uh-huh. Right, guys.
Led Dick Cheney, a guy named David Addington, wrote a secret legal interpretation. And so they did this, and this became a mass surveillance program called Stellar Wind, which they said was supposed to monitor the phone calls and internet communications, emails, and things like that of everybody in the United States and around the world.
Suddenly, Jones's fringe ideas about the deep state and mass surveillance of people weren't so ridiculous. People's newfound disillusionment with authority in the status quo cut through US politics. And Jones, having warned about this stuff for years, was finally the voice of a growing movement of people becoming increasingly paranoid about the government.
Unelected deep state operatives who defy the voters to push their own secret agendas are truly a threat to democracy itself.
And his own paranoia is only compounded when he finds himself at the center of a brutal presidential campaign.
Well, it was also that Trump called it out too. Trump basically said, yeah, there are a deep state amount of people that are controlling things, and it is billionaires that are doing it. Well, how do you know? It's because I was doing it.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump getting attacked by major political and media figures regularly across the world.
Radio host Alex Jones, who claims that 9/11 and the Oklahoma City bombings were inside jobs.
Trump, however, openly stated his admiration for him, which swelled Jones's audience even further.
That's right.
Saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot.
His drain the swamp mantra and endless attacks on the status quo found a powerful supporter in Jones, whose interview with Trump in 2016 is said to have helped Trump get over the line and into the White House.
If I'm elected president...
I think that it definitely locked into schizos. The moment that Trump... and also, I don't like that this video glossed over the Piers Morgan interview. I do think, because Piers Morgan was he's a sharp guy. He is. And nobody mogged Piers Morgan on his own show the same way that Alex Jones did. They brought on, I remember, Jesse Ventura, and Jesse Ventura mogged Piers as well. But the difference is that Jesse Ventura wasn't militant about it. He was much more relaxed. Everything was fine. But the moment that you brought Alex Jones on and he just and I'm talking about, again, back in the day, Alex Jones going on Piers Morgan and just totally fucking just bulldozering him. I really think that was a massive aura gain for him. It was.
We are going to drain
that was
the swamp
last year.
in
I'm talking
Washington,
15 years ago.
D.C.
So suddenly Jones's once fringe ideas were now being amplified by the most powerful man in the world. The head of the government he'd spent years attacking was now his personal champion. This was Jones's peak, but after a peak, there was always a fall, and Jones had a long way to fall from the heights he'd reached. With his drinking and Adderall use getting out of control, his marriage was collapsing.
I can't stand to be at a party where alcohol's being drunk and not drink it. I am weak. My flesh is weak.
His wife divorces him, and a nasty and at times very public custody battle for their children engulfs his private life, with his wife doing TV interviews attacking his character. People in Texas start filming him and harassing him in public.
That's definitely him. He's a rage-filled person.
After a
Poe's mad, bro. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. I don't believe. And also the other one, it was a huge, the big one that happened too was Sandy Hook. Because I think Sandy Hook happened before Trump. It was 2000 and I don't know, 13 or something like that. I don't remember about when the timeline was, but it was really, that was the big one. Because that's actually what cooked, Alex Jones was not cooked except for that. That was the only thing that really fucked him.
9-day trial, a jury awarded Kelly Jones joint custody of their kids, making her home the primary residence instead of their father's.
Wow.
He appears on InfoWars looking worse and worse, often with red eyes and a swollen face.
Because then it was a secret. I had a divorce 3 years ago. I tried to keep my kids out of it.
You can see his brash character start to fall apart at the seams. There were days he almost burst into tears on air.
But there were good people in the government.
He also starts becoming way more direct about the elite circles he believed were running the world. He also speaks more openly about powerful pedo networks, and he was one of the first people to bring public attention towards Jeffrey Epstein's first arrest, when most people still had no idea who Epstein even was.
That's right.
When you've got the same FBI a couple of years ago with Jeffrey Epstein, with the Lolita Express, with Bill Clinton on at least 16 round-trip flights to the Island, he got convicted of running.
And years later, the truth about the scale of his crimes filled the headlines every day. Only more than 10 years later have some of the most central figures and longtime targets of Joneses, like the Clintons, been dragged into depositions to answer for their friendship with Epstein.
Do you believe you...
This was crazy, bro. Like, he sees the Epstein files and he's like,
were a victim of a Jeffrey Epstein intel operation?
Oh, man.
Do you think that you might have been, like, caught up in some of what he was maybe potentially doing?
Did you ever receive a massage or have physical contact from her or anyone else on that trip?
You've seen the pictures. There was one time when I was sitting up and I got a back rub, a neck rub.
And Jeffrey Epstein, who had regular orgies at his Caribbean compound that the former president visited multiple times.
His audience kept growing. Jones became ever more convinced of himself. The threats from the elites and mainstream media grew, and the pressure was now mounting. But still, he kept the show going. Now he was deciding to take aim at another billionaire in his line of sight, one he'd warned us about for years and who had been ignored: Bill Gates. Jones was an early critic of Gates, and his
completely fucking vindicated, by the way. Once again, completely and absolutely fucking vindicated. How did he know all that, though? Because you would really be surprised the amount of progress that you can make on something if you are an above intelligence person who's completely fucking insane. If you look at history, you will see above average people that are completely fucking insane on every page. That's it. That's literally it, man. Obsession? Yes.
Artificial nice guy act. He saw the contradictions in Gates' claims to want to help the world and poor people, all while desiring to control overpopulation by decreasing the global population.
Sterilizing people.
2 weeks ago, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation secret meeting of the rich with Warren Buffett and Ted Turner, and it said the main agenda was reduce our population by 80%.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Particularly in poorer places like Africa.
But it's really Africa that still has doubling in population to 2050.
Of course, Jones's take on Gates' plan for Africa's population growth was a little less nuanced.
Murder Africa! Invasion force! Release us! I mean, these are kook, cult, demons, hardcore evil. I mean, these people are flaming scum.
While regular people were horrified that one of the blandest billionaire geeks on the planet was also a part of the Epstein files, Jones...
And he was right about that again. The thing is that he's shouting it from the rooftops. He's trying to tell everybody, but no one wanted to listen.
Was now vindicated and climbed even further into his own mania. By this point, he was no longer on the fringes. He was now mainstream. His YouTube channel was clocking up more views than established broadcasters like MSNBC. He was worth hundreds of millions, had hundreds of millions of followers, had the president's ear. He was completely untouchable. Or so he thought. You see, he starts getting drunk on air more often, with wild appearances on podcasts like The Joe Rogan Experience, where his
legendary. No. Let's not reframe this, okay? Joe Rogan and Alex Jones have been friends for like 30 years. So let's not pretend like Joe Rogan was like, oh, wow, Alex Jones is so crazy. No, Joe was gassing him up. Joe was saying, oh, and then what, Alex? So what about that alien shit? So what do they have in area? So who's this Bob Lazar? Who is this guy? Yeah, well, let's not rewrite history. They were in this together.
State is overlooked as it's just part of his...
We need a new one, by the way.
Brand now.
No, I love being here. I'll sit here and like tell fart jokes if you want. I'd rather get drunk and just have a good time.
This episode, number 911, was done purposefully by Rogan in honor of Jones's career turning point.
I knew I go, okay, there's a certain number of podcasts I have to do to get this to 9/11. So Jamie and I worked it out, and we did it!
It was hugely successful, the biggest mainstream conspiracy theorist being egged on by arguably the world's biggest interviewer, which then sent Alex Jones into the stratosphere. And he didn't disappoint.
Well, this was all,
He was high on his own fumes and happy to say absolutely anything, knowing people would still believe, and he'd face no consequences.
Well, the problem is that he was right.
On one of Joe Rogan's most popular episodes of all time, that has since been deleted, he appears in a NASA shirt.
Think about that. It got deleted. Every other interview didn't get deleted. That one got deleted. Why would you do that?
And is seemingly more crazy than he's ever been before. Over the course of nearly 5 hours, he rants about this kind of stuff.
5 hours.
Native Americans you can mind control really fast. 20 years ago, they had spiders that produced body armor, spider guts. Okay, they have human-animal hybrids 30 years ago.
Human-animal hybrids. Then the Epstein files reveals human-animal hybrids. Then Tim Burchett, the senator from Tennessee, says that they have human-animal hybrids. Wow. What are the odds of that? That's crazy.
We've got giant human tissue farms. Right. Aliens are real. They're creating human-animal hybrids. They admit 5G in all the studies, LA Times, causes massive mutation and cancer.
Wait a minute,
and literally rattles your DNA apart. All of our kids are under attack. NASA is the German breakaway government.
It was from this point onwards that Jones never returned to his previous, more stable state. Adderall and alcohol had now taken the wheel, and his downfall was near.
Jones was arrested in Texas on a misdemeanor charge of driving while intoxicated.
His claims didn't need to make sense. That wasn't his stock in trade anymore.
The problem is that they did, though. That's the they did make sense. That's the situation.
He didn't need to be right, he just needed to go further. His off-air actions got worse. He very clearly starts cracking, and it's only a matter of time before he gives the people who want him gone exactly what they need to finish him, as he crosses a line he can't come back from, making his now infamous claims about Sandy Hook never occurring, that the children didn't exist and the grieving parents were actors. He'd actually been saying this stuff for years prior to the podcast and this point, but now those words were coming back to bite him. After his followers turned on the parents, and all the evidence proved him wrong, he had to be dragged kicking and screaming to walk it all back. This was the first time he'd actually had to take accountability for his more wild statements. Although he questions the legitimacy of the attack when it happens, he isn't famous enough for anyone to care. As his star rises, his repeated claims are heard everywhere, bringing Jones all the wrong kinds of attention. His followers turn on the parents, sending them death threats and accuse them of faking their grief. And so in 2018, a way to silence him was found. He could have InfoWars, but no big platform allows him to use their base anymore. He was taken off the biggest...
as soon as basically every single social media company at the same time deplatformed Alex Jones. They all, it was in one morning, and he was taken off of every social media platform. Was he right on this one? I think he was wrong on this. This is stupid.
Social media platforms all in one single moment. YouTube, Facebook, and then Twitter, wiping out a huge chunk of his audience and his revenue. For those who didn't know Jones, now he was infamous for being one of the most silenced individuals online. His daily audience then fell from 1.4 million daily views to 715,000, and it only went down.
By the way, that's ridiculous. If you get taken off of every major social media platform and you only lose half your audience, that's nuts.
From there, suddenly all those huge popular Joe Rogan episodes were wiped off YouTube and Spotify. Anything with Jones's name was considered hate speech. Bootleg re-uploads are quickly taken down, and it's clear that tech companies are serious about silencing him. He's seen as too toxic, and they're not going to jeopardize their profits for a wild card, no matter how much his supporters...
I don't think it had anything to do with their profits. I think Alex Jones was a ideological enemy, and they systematically worked to come up with an excuse to delegitimize him. I think that it had nothing to do with, like, you know, any sort of the company looking out for itself or anything else. I think straight up, they just wanted to get rid of him. That was it.
Shout about free speech. Even when the evidence on Sandy Hook eventually proved him wrong, he was dragged kicking and screaming to walk it all back in court, as he's not used to actually having to take accountability for those wild statements. In his trial, his lawyer tries to dismiss his claims as part of an eccentric character Jones plays on air. Jones himself confesses he has psychosis, which is at the root of a lot of his claims, but it doesn't fly.
And I myself, almost had like a form of psychosis back in the past where
The judge sides with the victims and orders Jones to pay an eye-watering $1.5 billion in damages.
Completely done. By the way, see, this is what I said before. Remember how I said that, like, you need to weaponize the justice system as much as you can? And, like, if it was up to me, I would absolutely weaponize it against my enemies and do so with complete, I would not even consider it. I would instantly do it. It's because $1.5 billion defamation lawsuit. Are you kidding me? This was so obviously politically and socially motivated. Like, they were doing this to him in order to damage him as much as possible. Like, I don't think that this was it. How is this proportionally defined based off of anything? You can't defame dead people. Well, no, I think that, like, obviously it should have happened. But the 1.5 billion number, this was obviously done. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message. That's it.
Forcing him to declare bankruptcy, and there is no recovering. But it makes you wonder, what stuff does this guy really believe and warn us genuinely, and what does he say as just part of an act?
Never forget that they did that. And that, again, and also, like, I think he should have been held accountable for it. But to do that after all of these different big companies collectively, like, I mean, what do you think the odds are that they all banned him on the same day randomly? They clearly coordinated this. So what do you think that, what do you think's going on here? This is the reason why I am always a big advocate of pulling every lever of power that you can possibly have. Always do it, because if you don't do it, your opponents will. And if they do it, they're not going to let you do it again. That's it. Twitter files show this coordination. Yeah, because they, of course, didn't they try the same thing with Trump? Exactly. I wish that there were more people that felt the way that I did, but too many people are blinded by a principle that's defined by their enemies. And unfortunately, it's causing them to lose, which is by design.
For all his antics, is a really smart guy. He's an incredible speaker, and when you look at his past and all the warnings he gave us, a lot of them turn out to be true. He even said back in the day he has all this performance just to be entertaining.
Well, I get pretty hot on a lot of these shows, and I wouldn't say really angry, just more, excited. I mean, for me to, try to make it entertaining and at the same time give people information, I let myself get pretty excited.
But from that point onwards...
Everybody does this, by the way. Everybody does this. It's nothing unique with Alex Jones. They just do it in different ways.
Realized that the more he lent into extreme behavior, the more interested people were. The algorithm favors extreme content.
Everything I'm saying is true.
So when did this act become his actual personality and astray his warnings? Well, very few people actually knew him well. His ex-wife told the media that the screaming, rapid-fire, monologuing conspiracy theorist is just who he is.
Is this acting or is this real? That's definitely him.
I'm not gonna believe your ex-wife. This trying to get custody and all your money. I'm not gonna believe her. No.
Rage-filled person.
But this was also in the middle of a very messy custody battle for their kids during a very messy divorce. Only really 2 other people genuinely knew him since he was an apolitical upstart shouting at George Bush in the 90s. And what they have to say about him fills in a lot of the blanks around someone who is clearly gifted, but also deeply troubled.
He's been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. So I think an awful lot of the things that he does is because he has that disorder.
Jon Ronson is one of the very few people who actually tried to get to the heart of Alex Jones, and after learning his origin story from an unnamed employee of Jones's, Ronson revealed the reason Jones is a conspiracy theorist.
Alex has an origin story about how he was hounded out of Dallas and had to move to Austin because he uncovered police corruption and the police hounded him out of town.
What do you think the probability of that being true is? I think it's pretty high.
They had cops up there that I knew were drug dealers, and I stood up and I said, I was at a pool party. He was selling...
I've had friends that have sold drugs to cops. Like, this happens. Yeah, it happens. Like,
see, last week, they took me in an office, ran my head in the wall, told me, we're going to kill you and have black people with foot-long dick you in the ass tomorrow. But they said, you're going to move out of this town right now.
It's because he was a bully and everyone was afraid of him. And one day he was invited to a party in a barn, but it was a trap. He was basically the victim of a conspiracy. And it was all the kids who he had bullied beat him half to death. And that's why he left town.
Yeah. But Alex Jones got dumped on his head when he was in high school. He's speaking about getting bullied in high school.
Yeah.
This guy picked him up and pile drived him, slammed him on the concrete on his head when he was, 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And he was ever since then.
Yeah.
And this guy said, isn't this extraordinary that Alex became a conspiracy theorist because he had been the victim of a conspiracy? Not uncovered a conspiracy, but been the victim of one.
Rogan says that Jones wasn't lying about Sandy Hook. It's just that he's not even capable of thinking straight.
He wasn't lying. He just was wrong. He really believed that the government had faked it to try to confiscate people's weapons. Like, he's just...
Well, I mean...
But it was a haze of drugs and booze and a psychotic break and, like, legitimate traumatic brain injury.
And then you see him today, where he's barely able to speak because he's so drunk on just a handful of podcasts that will have him on.
I think that this is I think this video is unfair to Alex Jones. I think that we're not even talking about the fact that he was right about the frogs. Like the Epstein stuff of him bringing that up as well. Jerry Epstein on Joe Rogan. I think that Alex Jones was right about at least 25% of the stuff. And the thing is that the 25% that he was right on was the most important 25%. The thing is, like, I understand, like, he made mistakes. He did shit that was wrong. That's true. But when I see all of these social media platforms that are collectively trying to deplatform him and do this all entirely, and there is a massive, like, never even heard before $1.5 billion defamation lawsuit against him, dude, like, I mean, at what point can you not say that this is very coordinated foul play? I mean, really. Like, that's crazy. The reality is, when he talks about Sandy Hook's suspect compared to the other Epstein stuff he got, right? Yeah. And again, like, I think that was wrong. Like, for sure it was dumb. And he said other things that I think were dumb too. But that doesn't mean that everything is dumb. And also, by the way, Tim Pool is really well known. It's not like this is a random podcast. This guy is very well known.
It is not going to work that you are going to...
made obviously by our own creation.
Indeed.
All desperately trying to escape the financial ruin by declaring bankruptcy for losing the trial. Perhaps the final nail in his coffin is that his political North Star has strayed so far with his attacks on Iran that Jones now finds himself back on the outside of mainstream political thinking.
That I have to intensify my criticism of President Trump. Trump's out of his mind. We didn't betray Trump. He betrayed us. But just on the genocide issue alone, Trump says, I will genocide your entire country, which is an open war crime. Even say you'll do it when you have the weapons. This is terrorism.
The America First, No Foreign Wars, MAGA movement that Jones championed was thrown out of favor in return to the old US politics of Middle Eastern wars that he used to criticize so fiercely. Along with everything that happened with Epstein, and now Jones is in favor of having Trump impeached. This is something he vehemently criticized when it happened in 2019, relentlessly attacking the Democrats for the move and calling it a hoax.
So what do you think's coming next with the whole impeachment hoax? Because it is a hoax now.
Well, he doesn't agree with it. It's pretty simple.
They may never send it to the Senate.
It got so bad that Trump even responded on Truth Social, calling him bankrupt Alex Jones. And now Alex Jones even denies that he was ever a conspiracy theorist, saying this was all just a ploy by the media and CIA to undermine him.
That's why I get mad at the shows that are, innuendo and conspiracy theories. I've never been a conspiracy theorist, folks. That's what the media calls me. That's a CIA term.
In the end, it's not really clear whether he believes what he's saying or just needs people to listen to him.
This show is about information, not continual entertainment.
I think that this was not fair to Alex. I think that, again, There were a number of things that Alex Jones did and was completely, absolutely, totally fucking vindicated on. And I think that overwhelmingly, like Alex Jones, well, yeah, I mean, again, I don't agree with Alex Jones about everything, right? But to say that it's all about alcohol and everything else, I mean, you have to also keep in mind that, like, if any of this stuff is true, it means he's also being attacked and hounded down by, like, all of these super powerful institutions all the time. And yeah, I bet that's probably going to stress somebody out. It is. It's definitely going to stress somebody out. There's another POE video now. I'll have to look at it. And very reductive. Yeah, he's a conspiracy realist. Yeah, Alex Jones has gotten a lot of things right. He has gotten an overwhelming amount of things right. I like Moon. I think this is the beginning of it was very accurate, especially in terms of like his humble beginnings and all of that. But I think really like what happened with Alex Jones, I think that one thing that negatively affected him really is the fact that he tied his boat to Donald Trump so much. So it basically meant that he had to underwrite things that Trump would do. And I think that whenever you do that with any individual person, rather than whenever you're working inside of an ideology, it makes you look compromised. And at this point, a lot of conspiracy people have even moved beyond Alex Jones. And this is like, you know, Candace Owens and people that are even more conspiracy brained than that. And this is one of the issue of conspiracy theories is that they are a self-radicalizing spiral. And the more that people get involved with conspiracy theories, the more people get involved with conspiracy theories. And I think that now it's gotten so extreme that everybody just believes anything. You mean CIA assets? I don't know what's going on, if people are feds or not or anything else. But like to me, I feel like a lot of that are just, it's simply just PvP. It seems like it's just different users PvPing each other, stuff like that. And the dead children thing, don't forget to say children died and not just Sandy Hook. Well, yeah, because he said that the children didn't actually die and the parents, it was all fake and they were crisis actors and everything. Like my mom believed in it too, right? Because she was a big fan of Alex Jones. And so, and I always thought it was really stupid. I thought it was stupid the day it happened. And like what I thought was kind of ironic is that there were other things that were like kind of odd about Sandy Hook. Like, for example, like they said there were 2 shooters at the beginning. Like I remember I was at Jeff's house and I watched the Sandy Hook news story happen in real time. And like, it was always interesting to me that like, they never really discussed that, but they discussed these other conspiracy theories instead of that. And not that I thought that any of them meant anything, but it's like, it seemed like you would have more of a gradient of it, right? And so, yeah, I kept changing the story. I don't know what happened. I mean, who knows why they changed the story? It could be a lot of different reasons. But yeah, that's it.